DreAllDay.com.
Dre Baldwin, DreAllDay.com. Today's lesson for the class, the topic that we will be discussing, the 3 most important things about you at work. These are the things that all of you need to understand when it comes to the game that you're putting out, how you are showing up, how you are being evaluated, and what is going to determine whether you're able to move forward or you stay stagnant or you move backwards or you just get completely kicked out of the game in any business that you happen to be involved in. So make sure you are paying close attention to what I'm saying here, and make sure that you are prioritizing these 3 things when it comes to you putting your game out there in the world. So without any further ado, let's get to it. The 3 most important things about you at work and anything that you do. Number 1, most important thing about you, just make sure that's lined up so I don't get too far under here. Number 1 is your game. Your game. Do you have game? Do you actually help the team? Does your presence make the team better, or does your presence make the team worse? Does you being in the office, does you being on the court, does you being in the building, you being on the Zoom call, you being in the meeting, does your presence make things better or not? Can you actually play? This is the number 1 thing that I would tell ball players back when I was making basketball material back in the days. I would always say to players, the number 1 question about you is, can you play? I don't care who you know. I don't care how tall you are. I don't care where you're from. I don't care what your vertical jump is, any of that. When you get on the court with 9 other players in a game, can you play? Can you impact the game in a positive way that leads to a positive result for the team that you're on? So when we talk about your game, there's several things that we're going to talk about here. Let's talk about things like your presence. Does your presence improve the situation for the team that you're a part of? Let's talk about your productivity, meaning when we actually measure your work and the things that you've done, does what you've done make the situation better again, or does it make the situation worse? This is a black and white thing that we can measure your game. Is your game making things better? Again, we should be able to see this, and these are the things that people are going to measure. Let's talk about some things that don't matter, as a matter of fact, also when it comes to your game. So these are things that do matter. So we're going to put a plus sign next to the things that do matter. We will talk about your stats, and your stats are not the whole thing, but your stats do matter. When I say your stats, I'm not just talking for athletes. If you're a salesperson, are you hitting your sales quota? Or is that part of the stats when it comes to sales? Absolutely it is. Let's talk about some things that don't matter. Your nationality does not matter. Your gender does not matter. Your race does not matter. Your religion does not matter. Your orientation, whatever that happens to be this day or this week, that does not matter. These are all things that people are trying to make matter, or try to use as an excuse, or some people are trying to shoehorn these into being things that matter more than your actual production and your performance. They absolutely do not matter. Let's talk about performance. This is another thing that does matter when it comes to your game, what you actually put out there, and what you add to the team. That's what we'll call this. What do you add to the team? Meaning, does your presence make the team actually better? These are all things that matter for your game. These are all things that do not matter for your game. Understand something, that your gender, your nationality, your race, your sexual orientation, your politics, that's another one we can put on here. What political party you're affiliated with or that you associate with. Let me write that better. I'm usually typing on the computer, so sometimes my handwriting can be... All right, here we go. Your politics, that also is not mattering. All of these things cannot overcome a lack of game. Any of these, even if you think they matter, even if you work somewhere where they say out loud that it matters, they put out a memo and tell you that it matters, these cannot overcome a lack of these. In other words, if you're the right nationality, let's say you're from some third world country, you're a female, you're a person of color, you're some marginalized religion, you're LGBT, and you're supporting whatever the correct political party is at the time in that particular place. If you have all of these things, you're doing the right thing, quote unquote, in that space, yet you have no presence, you don't produce, you don't put up stats, you don't perform, you do not add to the presence of the team, you're still not going to move forward because it is clear that you have no game. None of these can be an excuse for these. Okay, so none of these can make up for these. If you come up short in this category, it will not solve your problem. You have a problem here, even if you're doing the right thing here, it will not solve the problem of what's missing over here. That's why your game is the most important thing by what you do. In life, you will be judged by what you bring to the table, juxtaposed by what you take off of the table. So these are things that are adding, these are things that are making the situation better, these are things that are taken away from the situation. So put a minus sign here and a plus sign here. These minuses cannot make up for these lack of pluses if you ever have something in this situation. So let's move on to number 2. So number 1 thing you already know that matters for your evaluation at work is your game. Number 2 thing that matters is, make sure I do this in the right order, is your associations. Who you are, who do you know, who knows you, and how do they feel about you? Those are your associations. So let's write those down. Who you are, because how people see you matters. Who you know. Who knows you. How you're seen in the marketplace or in the workplace or even in the office. All of these things are about your associations, and those relationships matter a whole lot. Let's put relationships also on this list. Your relationships, do they matter? Absolutely, they do matter. Understand what the law of association says, that you become the average of the people that you spend the most time with. Well, who are you spending time with? Who are you? Because that determines who wants to spend time with you. Who do you know? Who knows you? What is their perception of you, which is how you're seen? Relationships, we'll just put the word perception, because this is your reputation. And does this matter? Absolutely it does. I know some of you have heard the saying that reputation is what people think about you and character is who you actually are as a person. However, I'm paraphrasing that statement. Understand what people think about you and what they see you as on the outside, that matters. Even though you might think character matters more, fine, if that's the way you feel, understand that this does matter. Your reputation in the marketplace determines what kind of associations you will have. There is only so far that you can go in life alone, even if you have all the game in the world. So in other words, if you got a whole lot of game, so let's talk about the things that aren't going to help you here. If you have game, but no connections or relationships, we'll put there, then that's going to slow you down when it comes to associations. If you have game and you have too many enemies in the space, that will slow you down. If you have a negative reputation, that will slow you down. All of these things can get in your way, even if you have a ton of game, but no connections, or you have enemies, or you have a negative reputation. Those will all be different versions of the exact same thing. Understand that you become the company you keep. All right, everybody understands that, because all of you understand what the law of association says. If you want to improve, you want to step your game up in any way in life, one of the quickest ways to do it is to associate with other people who are already at the level that you want to be at. So this is why you want to build these relationships with people who already have game, people who are already doing their thing, people who are already out there, performing, and they're already known, they're already seen, they're already heard, and people already have a positive expectation of them. You get around those people through the law of association, and it can either enhance your game or it can even replace a lack of game. If you don't have a lot of game, but you have the right associations, you can get opportunities that people who only have game have. Simply because you know the right person, they can make a phone call on your behalf. You want to be around people who have power, people who have that juice. So we'll put that right here. So you want to be around people who have power, people who have juice. You want to be around people who are known. You want to be around people who are impact players. These are the kind of people, and I'll just draw a line here so you know what I'm talking about. You want to be around people who already have these things. You want to go, when you walk into a room, I heard somebody say once, they walk into a room at an event and they tell whoever they're with, listen, there's about 3 people in this room that we need to meet. I know there's 100 people in the room. There's about 3 people in here who we really need to meet. The rest of them, we don't really need to know. We want to meet the people who have power, people who are known, and the people who are impact players. Those are the people that we want to meet. Any of you who's a salesperson, when you're making a sales presentation or you put a product or a service out there, an offer out there, these are the people you're looking for. You're looking for people with the power, with the juice, people who are known, and people who are impact players. Why? Because these are the people who probably can afford what you want, and they will understand the value of it, and they'll be willing and able to pay for it. See, a lot of people might say that they understand the value of what you're offering, but they can't buy it because they have no power, they have no juice. All right, money is power. Resources are power. Access is power. And we'll put the word access here also. People who have access. All it is are the kind of people that you want to associate with. So I'll put a plus sign here because these are the people who, you meet people who have these things, these are the associations that you want to make. Your associations need to be people who fit these categories. So here's the other thing that you need to think about. You need to look at yourself. You need to look in the mirror here. Are you one of these people? Do you have power and juice? Are you known? Are you an impact player? Do you have access? Do you have relationships? Can you make a phone call? You want to be around the kind of people who can make a call and get something done. Make a call and get you connected with the right person who has the right information for what you're looking for right now. These are the kind of associations that you want in your life and in your career. And also, again, every one of you watching this right now, you need to look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, are you one of these people? Can you make a call and get something done for people? Because when you're that type of person who can make a call and get something done for people, guess what you become? You become an impact player. And when you're an impact player, guess what? Your value goes up, you can charge what you want, and people will be willing to pay it. At least people who understand the value of it, and people who can actually pay it. Because there's a lot of people out here who will say they understand the value of what you're doing, but they can't pay for it because they don't have any resources. They have no power, they have no juice, they're not impact players, and they don't have, we should use the word resources here too, because resources can kind of be all of these things. So your resources are like those 5 forms of investment: time, money, attention, energy, focus. Access, relationships, phone calls. They can send a text and get a response. They send an email, their email gets replied to. Their messages get opened. Those are the kind of people that you want to be associating with, and or you want to make sure that you are one of these people so that you have the association power and people want to deal with you. So you need to figure out a way that you can offer to other people something that would help them with this, something that can help them make an impact. So if you had a lot of game, but you have no associations, so say you got a ton of game, but you don't really know anybody. Nobody really knows you. How can you leverage this in order to build associations? What you need to do is figure out how your game can help people who have these things. So when you run into people who have these things, what you want to do is figure out how you can take these pieces right here and how you can translate them over to help someone who already has these. In other words, let's say I got a ton of game. Let's say I'm a great salesperson. I'm productive. I put up stats. I'm hitting my sales quotas. I'm performing. I add to the team. I make any organization that I'm working in better when it comes to my sales game. But I don't know anybody. I'm just a complete nobody. Let's say I moved to a new town. I've never been in this town before. Nobody knows me. And I'm trying to get known. I'm trying to build up my associations game. What do? What I'm going to do is not just start talking to the nobodies. What I'm going to do is go find the people who have power and juice, the known people, impact players who have access, who can make a call, and who have resources. And I'll say to them, hey, Mr. Impact Player, here's what I can do. I can help you make more sales. I'll help your stats get better. I'm a high performer who's going to help everything that you're doing as far as your game. I'm going to make it better. And in exchange for me doing that, all you're going to do is give me access to the other people you know who have power and juice, known people who are impact players, who have access, they can make a call, and they have resources. Now, why would the impact person want to help me out? The reason they're going to help me out is because I'm going to help them out. So we call this as a symbiotic relationship. And if you've never heard that phrase, now you know it. I'm going to write it down right here so all of you know what this means. It's symbiotic relationship. Symbiotic relationship means I'm helping you and you're helping me, which means there's value flowing this way and there's value flowing that way. When you want to build up associations, what you need to do is have some game that you can prove. Notice that all these things are provable. And I should put that on here too, so all of you understand it. These are not things that you say as your opinion. Nobody cares about your opinion. This is all requiring proof. When you can prove these things, that means you have a ton of game. Utilize the proof of this game to go talk to people who already have the impact and the juice, the people who are already the high associations that you want to deal with. This is how you can build up associations, leveraging game, even if you don't know anybody, even if you're not that known of an individual. So we got game, associations. What's the third thing that you need at work? The third thing that's going to determine your value. Number 3 is your resume. What is your resume? Your resume is what you've done, where you've been, can you prove it, and are there people who will co-sign it? So we can put all of those right here on it. That's what the resume is. Resume is your track record. What have you accomplished? Track record. Where you've been, the proof, cosigns. All of these things are part of your resume. Resume is your track record of where you've been, the proof that you can prove that you've done these things, and who, association, is willing to co-sign you. Notice how all of these things are connected. So your proof is connected to your game. Can you show that you've done it? Your cosigns are connected to your associations. Your track record and where you've been, that's as you showing, hey, I've done these things. Those will also be connected to your game. So what your resume is about is not just what you say you can do. These are things that you can prove that you can do. Understand the game is not about your opinion. Notice nothing that I say on here is about opinions. Only way opinions come in place is associations. What do other people say about you? What do people say about you, how you are seen? Like I talked about right here on this point. This is the only one that's an opinion. Everything else needs to be proved. This is your resume. The resume is what have you done? Who have you associated with? Who would co-sign that they've associated with you? What do they say about you? And understanding the best indicator of future performance is past performance. So that is what this is. Your past performance equals your future performance. Something about co-signing right here. I heard a business guy say this. He said, anytime you're going to do a business deal with another person, ask them before you do the deal to provide 3 references of people who've done business with them before and who would do it again. 3 people who would have done business with this person before, and they say that they would do it again. 3 references. Now, why does that matter for you? The reason this matters for you is because you need to be building up these references. You need to be the type of person who, if you met a new person today, if you met me on the elevator and I wanted to do business with you, whatever you do, whatever you sell, I want to buy it. But I say, before we do business, I need you to give me 3 references of people who've already done the same business with you who would do it again. Can you provide it? Can you give me 3 names, 3 numbers, 3 email addresses, 3 people who would co-sign your work in that particular space, who worked with you before and would do it again? You've been in business for 5 years or more, you should have way more than 3 references. You should have a lot of proof of your game. References are proof. That's what these are. References are proof of your game. And here's the thing. If you got a lot of game and you have references, you don't even need to show me your game. Your references will be enough of a cosign because your references are also associations. See how all this works? See, when you have solid references, each reference, if you have a reference that I really respect, let's say I was doing some kind of anything. Let's say I wrote a book. I got one of my books. So I'll take this book right here, 100 Mental Game Best Practices, right? So I had this book, and I say this is a great book. You should read it. And you say, Dre, well, provide me 3 references of people who say that this is a great book. And I give you one of my references is Oprah Winfrey. And Oprah is saying great things about my book. And Tony Robbins is another reference. And Barack Obama is my 3rd reference. These references are such strong associations that you don't need to see anything else from the game side. Those references are strong enough that it's going to move you to action. See, that's the power of a reference. That's the power of relationships. That's why your associations matter so much. The challenge for many of you is that you are very, very weak on this point right here. You have no associations. You do not know anybody. You need to meet more people. Many of you are running out here like lone wolves. And the problem is, as a lone wolf, you can't even kill anything because you haven't proven enough game yet. All of these things matter. You need all of these things connected. See, if you are weak on associations, you better be really, really strong on game. When you're weak on associations, you better be strong on game. And if you are weak on associations and you're weak on game, it's impossible for you to build a resume. And that's why these are the 3 things that matter the most when it comes to your work. Understand, again, the best indicator of future performance is your past performance. So the first thing people want to look at is, what have you done in the past? Who have you dealt with in the past? What was your past game? Who are your past associations? Should I deal with you? When people don't know you, they become really, really skeptical of what you're able to do. So when your associations are weak, they're going to be very, very critical of your game. When your associations are strong, people will even be willing to gloss over anything that comes up short in your game when your associations are strong, because relationships matter that much. This is the biggest thing, is when you can connect with people who have these things right here. So if you could take one thing from everything that I'm saying here, of course have game, because one of the best ways to connect with these kind of people is to have game. The more game you got, the more they will recognize you and the more they'll be willing to work with you. And that'll help you build up your resume. Understand, best, as I said, the best indicator. While you can't change your past, people will analyze you. They will analyze your past to hypothesize about your future. So if your past is shaky, you have a past shaky game or a shaky resume or a weak resume, this right here is the great equalizer, associations. Key insight is when you have strong enough showings in your past and the right associations, the blemishes on your resume matter the least. That's why this is the third point. When your game is strong, your associations are strong, you can have a bunch of blemishes on your resume. People will look over it and they'll keep working with you. I'll give you an example. Remember one time I was at, I can't remember what bank this was, but I had done a brand deal with Finish Line. You know, the sneaker store that still sells like athletic gear. I've done a brand deal with Finish Line, and for some reason they sent me a check. They didn't do a direct deposit, they sent me a check. So I needed to deposit this check. So I go to this bank that was in like Sunny Isles up down here in Miami. And I had put because at first I was going to deposit the check into my account through like a mobile app. But the amount of the check was more than the mobile app would allow. Like the maximum amount of the mobile app was like X numbers, but the check was for more than that number. So I couldn't use the mobile app. So I had to actually cash the check at the actual bank. So I saw the bank that the check was written from. So I go to this bank in Sunny Isles, and the woman there, she was kind of being a bitch about it. She wasn't going to let me, because she saw that I wrote the number on the back. She said, well, sir, because you wrote the number on the back, we can't cash the check. And she was giving me a hard time. So I'm like, all right, fuck it, forget her. I leave. And I was on my way somewhere else. I was on my way to Fort Lauderdale, right? So I drive up to Fort Lauderdale. I Googled and saw there's a different location of the same bank in Fort Lauderdale. So I said, let me go up there and let me see if the people up there will cash the check. Because I knew what she was doing was really just a technicality. It wasn't that she couldn't do it. She just didn't want to do it. So I didn't bother arguing with her. So I go up to another one. I said, let me see if I can get this check cashed here. So I get to this other one. Same bank, same company, just different location. Now, at the Sunny Isles location, it was like this older white woman, maybe she was Russian, didn't want to help me out. But I get to the one in Fort Lauderdale, there's this younger guy, white guy, he's probably 25, 27, working at the counter. And I get up there and he sees me, and at the time, the way that I'm dressed, I wasn't dressed like this. I had on like what y'all had usually seen me in. I had on a white tee, some basketball shorts, some Jordans, hat. And so I look like a basketball player. He sees me, and then I get up to the counter, he sees the check. And I'm like, yeah, I want to cash this check. You know, you got to show him ID and all this stuff. And he sees who the check is from. It says Finish Line on the check. And he knows what Finish Line is. That white woman probably didn't know what Finish Line was. And he looks at me, and he looks at the check, and he's like, oh, what do you do? He just started to get inquisitive. And I told him, yeah, I play ball. I put all these videos on YouTube. I played overseas, et cetera, et cetera. Now, it turns out he's a basketball fan. He's a young guy. He's a basketball fan. So he was going to like look me up, start following me on YouTube and stuff like that. So we started getting a conversation about basketball, and he's kind of like a fan of ball. When I told him I play ball, he sees the check from Finish Line, so he sees that I have some credibility because Finish Line's writing me a check. So then he looks at the number on the back of the check, that same number, my account number that I had wrote, that the last woman said, well, I can't cash your check because you're not supposed to write the account number. Now I can't do it and this and that. He looks at the number on the back of the check. He grabs an ink pen and he just crosses it out. And then he goes and cashes the check. It really happened that fast. He crossed it out and he said, well, just cross that out right there. And then he went and cashed the check. No problem whatsoever. Why am I telling you that? And what does it have to do with what I just told you? Associations. Now, I didn't know this guy. He didn't know me. He had never seen me before. He wasn't already a follower of mine. Not like I walked in and he said, oh, Dre Baldwin from YouTube. He didn't know who I was. The check showed him that I had some game because he understood who Finish Line was. His association was with Finish Line, right? He knew who Finish Line was. The other woman didn't. So he had the association for Finish Line. Then when I showed him the check and I told him my resume, I do these brand deals, he knew I wasn't lying because the only way I got that brand deal was through my game. See, and that association made me and him an association in 30 seconds. So he was willing to do something for me, execute, get things done. He had impact, he had access, he had resources, he had the power and the juice to cash that check for me that I otherwise couldn't have got cashed by somebody who didn't know what the deal was. They didn't have the same association to Finish Line that he did. And that's how these things work. And this is why you got to be active. This is why you got to be out there. This is why you got to be out as much as possible, proving your game, building associations, being seen, heard, and known so you can build your resume, you can get things done. So that track record that I said, hey, I played overseas, I make all these videos on YouTube. Again, I could have been lying. How does he know that I was telling the truth? Because I had that check right there in my hand from Finish Line. He could see the amount of the check. He could see that I'm not lying. I had a cosign from Finish Line. I had proof. I had been places. I had a track record. All of those led to a stronger and stronger association for him. So he was willing to cash that check for me, even though, who knows? Technically, maybe the woman at the first place was telling the truth and she wasn't supposed to. Maybe she was bullshitting and she just didn't want to help me out. Either way, things got done because of the association. So this is how, these are the three most important things about you at work. Make sure you have solid game, which means you have a presence, you are productive, you put up stats, you perform, you add to the team. These are all things that are proven. It is not about your nationality, gender, race, religion, orientation, or politics. Then associations. Who are you? Who do you know? Who knows you? How are you seen? People's opinion of you. What relationships do you have? And do you have a solid perception and reputation in the marketplace? And how do you know people who have these things? They have power and juice. They are known people. They're impact players. They have access. They can make a call. They can send a text and get a response. And they have resources that you may not have access to. You want as many people around you in life who have access to resources that you don't have access to because they can do things that you can't get done. And you need to be a person who has these things because you can do things for other people that they can't do. And that is what we call the symbiotic relationship. So when you have game, you can help people out with their stuff. When they have game, they can help you out with your stuff. So you want to find people who don't have the things that you do have so you can help them, they can help you, and everybody is winning in that situation. That's what we call the symbiotic relationship. And all of this allows you to build your resume. Your track record shows where you've been. You have proof of what you've done. You get cosigns. You want to have at least 3 references of anything that you're doing that somebody else can look at and say, damn, this person really does know their stuff, because there are other people who are saying positive things about them. Your associations. Remember that the #1 indicator of your future performance is your past performance. That is how all this stuff works together. So with all that said, 2 things for you to do. First of all, text me right here. You get my daily motivation text that I send out every day. My number is 305-384-6894, which you can see there. And secondly, my mastermind, my bulletproof mastermind, is at workonyourgameuniversity.com. That's where I walk you through and coach you on how to do all of these things, how to build up your game, how to build strong associations and build connections. Many of you need connections because you're out here running around by yourself trying to do everything on your own. Problem is you're not good at everything, so that means you're doing a bunch of jobs that you suck at, which means you will never get to the level you want to be at. It means you can never build your resume, and I will help you do all of these things that you see on this board in detail, specifically to you. That is in my bulletproof mastermind. Join that by going to workonyourgameuniversity.com. Work on your game. Dre all day.